Hello everyone, this is Leah Whitehorse from Leah Astrology, and in this recording I'm going to be talking about the full moon in Libra. So this full moon is going to occur at 12 minutes past midday. This is British summertime on the 19th of April 2019, and the moon is going to be at 29 degrees of Libra. And the opposing sun, as the moon and sun are always opposite one another at a full moon, the opposing sun will be at 29 degrees of Aries. So firstly, this is the second full moon in Libra that we have had this year. We had another back in March, just at the spring equinox, when the sun had just entered Aries. And so that full moon was when the moon was on the very, very first degree of Libra. And so we get this feelings, and that we have had an issue perhaps going on since the middle of March. And it was introduced around that time. We needed to perhaps make some kind of decision or come to some kind of agreement. But we were just in the beginning stages. It probably wasn't helped by the fact that Mercury was retrograde in Pisces at the time as well. So maybe we were finding ourselves kind of floundering a little, not really sure what's going on, a lot of uncertainty, maybe kind of feeling that we weren't quite sure of what we thought about what was going on in our lives, maybe uncertain about communication that was coming our way. Maybe we just sort of felt like we just needed to sit back and wait and figure things out. So it felt like very, very clouded. But the issue was still there. The sun that had just gone into Aries was conjunct Chiron. So there was some kind of pain, some kind of problem that we were trying to address. And now as we come to this full moon, with the moon being on the very final degree of Libra, it now feels urgent, critical. We must get this chapter closed. Mercury is now the one who is conjunct Chiron in this full moon chart for April. So we've got a sense perhaps we need to have some kind of difficult conversation, a painful conversation, even if it's a painful conversation with ourselves. But we do need to be more assertive because of the Aries energy. We kind of need to get something out into the open so that we can find this agreement, to find our balance once again. And then we can move forwards. We can put this chapter behind us. But it isn't, of course, easy. It's not always easy. The sun is close by to Uranus. So they are in a conjunction, but Uranus is in the next sign along in Taurus. So Uranus is over there breaking new ground, destabilizing those things that we kind of always took for granted, because Taurus is just the thing that's always been there. And it kind of feels at the moment that, we're kind of getting a bit shaken about because of this Uranus influence. But Uranus is also the awakener. So we're maybe having a bit of a wake-up call during this lunation. But it doesn't necessarily feel comfortable. The moon, sometimes with the moon being on this anaretic degree of Libra, we've got this sense that we're on a scale that is incredibly sensitive, or a seesaw that's incredibly sensitive. And just a fingertip on the other side of the seesaw is going to send us sailing up into the sky. It feels a bit like that. So there's a lot of sensitivity. With Mercury conjunct Chiron, although it's important to be assertive in what we're saying and kind of to be brave and think about things that maybe are difficult, we also do need to be careful that we don't hurt one another with what we need to say. There's a difference between having a difficult conversation and actually being hurtful with our words, because words can become weapons with Mercury in Aries. So we've got this kind of electric energy going on that is shaking us, that's waking us up, that's making us very conscious of where perhaps we have not expressed ourselves fully, because the Sun and Uranus really put us in touch with aspects of ourselves that perhaps we've been somewhat detached from, or haven't really seen, that we haven't been aware of. And now we need to fully express our originality and our uniqueness, but in a way that doesn't alienate us from other people. Maybe alienation is a bit of an issue for some people at the moment during this full moon, because we all want to be liked and to get on with others, to have friends, lovers, family, partner, whoever it is. We all want to feel like we belong somewhere. And so this is the moon in Libra, really not wanting to separate ourselves from those that we care about. But there is this issue that we mustn't compromise ourselves so much that we get lost in the mix. I'm also just noticing actually that the Sun and Uranus, we've got an asteroid there called Terpsichore, and Terpsichore was the muse of dance. So we've really now started getting this picture that we want to dance to the beat of our own drum, and we each have this unique dance of life. You know, we have our own way of living, our own ways of seeing things. Our own path, of course, is very important, but still somehow we need to find that sweet spot so that we don't end up feeling like we are just an outsider on the fringes, not really connected to anyone else. The moon is also in a quincunx, 150-degree aspect with Venus. So Venus is still in Pisces. She's actually exalted in Pisces. She functions well in this sign. But the quincunx is awkward. So this actually, again, like reiterates this sense of needing to feel loved. You know, Venus in Pisces is unconditional love. And maybe also we're all wanting to express this unconditional love. So the issue of unconditional love is present within this this lunation, and within all of these decisions and complications, and this need to come to some kind of agreement and conclusion. We're needing to feel as though whatever we decide, we're still going to be loved and thought of as worthy and thought of as precious. But the trouble is that with that quincunx, it's almost like anytime we have a quincunx in a chart, sometimes we just have to move forwards even when things are uncomfortable. And that's one of the most difficult things with the quincunx aspect, because it's almost like there's very little resolution. The two sides of the quincunx are so different, you know, Libra and Pisces. We could sort of say, oh, well, you know, both of them are concerned with our connection with other people. But at the same time, there's just this feeling that they can't really come to the agreement that we're looking for. So maybe the point is we need to anticipate that not everything is going to feel right straight away. You know, sometimes it's when we have difficult situations in our lives, and we're trying to find a resolution for that. We feel like as soon as we've made a decision, as soon as we've had the conversation, it'll be fine. And now all that stress, all that worry is going to fall away, and that's it. And we can put it behind us. But it's often not exactly like that. And I think this quincunx is reminding us that it's okay if things do still feel a little bit uncomfortable. That isn't a clue that you've done the wrong thing or you're going in the wrong direction. Sometimes we just have to be at ease with what is. You know, we just have to be at ease with what is. And that sense of uncomfortableness will slowly fade over time, and we'll start to get used to our new position or new agreement. So I think it's an important aspect in this, especially as, of course, Venus is the ruler of Libra. So it's the dispositor of the moon. So that's the word that we use as kind of like the Venus is ruling the moon. So she's ruling this chart because it's a Libra full moon. And so, yeah, Venus is definitely going to have something to say here. Now, there is some intensity about this full moon because the moon is actually square to Pluto. Of course, Pluto is up there in Capricorn, close to the South Node, and also to Saturn as well. So we've got a lot of very heavy, very intense energy going on that feels karmic. We have this great big kind of clear out, this karmic clear out happening, this deconstruction followed by reconstruction. Of course, you know, all of the symbolism that's coming through with the Notre Dame and so on. But yeah, this deconstruction and reconstruction that's happening that is very karmic in nature. And we're kind of feeling this, but we're feeling at cross purposes with it. There's a sense that we're very conscious of power games, power play, how much control we have or don't have. Maybe some of us are feeling like things are out of control, going back to that wildly swinging seesaw that swings at the merest touch of something on the other side to us. It just feels very, very volatile, and that some of us emotionally may be feeling very up and down, and like our moods are swinging, you know, very quickly because of the intensity of the Pluto energy. But even so, you know, we do need to release. We need to release what isn't working for us. We need to allow for the pressure that we're kind of feeling at this time. We need to anticipate that the pressure is there, and perhaps not to overreact to what is happening. The moon is in a sesquiquadrate aspect to Mars. So sesquiquadrates are very, very kind of slippery aspects, kind of cumbersome. And in practice, what I tend to find is that they do have this tendency to overreact to things. And so with Mars wants to do something. Mars wants to have a goal. Mars wants to act. He wants to defend. He wants to take action. But we could be too quick to react, and then that sends everything off balance again. I'm noting that Mars is still conjunct the asteroid Panacea, which is about healing everything. Heal all that's what the word panacea means, to heal all. So we could really be feeling this acute need to try to fix everything, you know, heal all, fix everything. There must be something I can do to fix everything. But that's not always possible, and we could just end up burning ourselves out trying to fix everything. If we think back to Pluto, the square to Pluto, one of the big things I always say when there's a difficult aspect to Pluto, it's know what is in your control and what isn't. And it's, you know, it's about not putting your energy where there's no chance of you being able to change that situation. You know, you don't want to be banging your head against a brick wall with Pluto. So this is really important to know what's in your control. Place your attention on those things that you do have some control over, and some autonomy as well with the Aries influence. And just focus on making sure that you can come to something that is workable, something that can work for you, even if it's not perfect. So, you know, if it's a partnership, if it's a job, whatever the situation is, sometimes especially with Venus actually being in Pisces, because that's very, very idealistic. And you know, we kind of want everything to be perfect in our lives, and it just isn't like that. And I think this is one of those times that we are super aware that it's just not like that, and it can be frustrating. Mars, the sesquiquadrate to Mars, and with Pluto as well informing our feelings, then one of the problems here is that we've got these extremes, which are already coming from the anaretic degrees anyway, but we've got these extreme sensitivities to anything that feels unfair. Now, if we start to fall into negativity, into that darkness of Pluto, and start to really get into the life isn't fair kind of feeling, then the danger is that we could slip very quickly along the trine between the moon and Juno. We could slip down to Juno. Juno is on the very final degree of Gemini. Juno is an asteroid which is associated with contracts and marriage and commitments. And in Gemini, it feels very much like Juno is stood there with a pen in one hand and a contract in the other hand, saying, just sign it, just get it done, sign it, and then we can move on. But if we fall into this life isn't fair feeling, then what could happen is that we end up grabbing this contract out of Juno's hand and sort of tearing it apart, like tearing every single tiny little point apart. And if we start doing that, then we're not going to get the agreement that's on offer. Then we're not going to find the peace within ourselves. Then we're not going to be able to feel like we can commit if we're just taking everything apart. So there is a bit of a challenge here to sort of negotiate some of these minor details. And like I said before, it keeps coming back to this same thing, that not everything is going to be perfect with the decisions and the conclusions that we're coming to at this time. But that's what we need to make peace with. And if we can make peace with that, then we can find that sweet spot that we're looking for. The Sabian symbol of this full moon is 3 mounds of knowledge on a philosopher's head. So if we just kind of go back to what I was saying about Juno and the picking everything apart, the negative side, the shadow side to this Sabian symbol is where we get so theoretical that nothing can be put into practice. Again, taking everything apart, constantly theorizing, analyzing, just thinking too much about it. Maybe what is needed at this time is simply just to be more philosophical. That helps us to keep the big picture in mind. It helps us to not take things quite so personally. And this Sabian also tells us that we have the wisdom that we need to make the right decision. This concludes my reading for the full moon in Libra for April 2019. I hope you found it helpful. If you are interested in knowing more about me or my work, or would like to book a reading, then you can come to my website www.leahwhitehorse.com. Alternatively, if you're interested in supporting my work further, as well as getting some extra information that is not published on my website, then you can join me on Patreon. I will put the links below for both my website and for Patreon as well. Thank you for listening, and I wish you many blessings on your path.